Hey, this is John with Two Moose Home Inspections. Welcome to the March 2022 in-service training. If this is your first time at one of our in-service trainings, I recommend putting it at 2x speed so that way you can get through it that much faster. There's a lot of information to cover, so let's talk about some of it right now. First off, we had a 3.5 hour long training, and the guys brought so much good information to the table. They had talks about mechanisms that cause issues inside of the house, how one thing compounds and builds onto the next, and how it may look like one issue, like very blatant to the eye, but actually it's something else happening behind the scenes that is causing this. And yes, okay, this is kind of an issue, but what we really want to talk about is what's going on that you can't see. And so we had some really, really good conversations. They brought some really cool information to the table, and it was a lot of fun, a really, really good training. The next thing that we have coming up is our Matterport virtual tours. And so Matterport virtual tours, basically we were juggling a bunch of different softwares and trying them out. And, ultimately it just came down to, we are chasing what the Matterport standard is. So why not just use Matterport? Just bite the bullet, spend the extra money. Why save a buck whenever you should just do the right thing? And so we are going with Matterport. We have done a whole bunch of training. We've done a lot of test houses. And so then we really want to be able to show you what we're able to do. And so if you're doing a pre-listing inspection and we're already there, why not just have us do the scan so that way you can have a virtual tour of the house that you're trying to sell. And that is just one more thing that helps you sell the house that you're looking to sell. So hopefully that is a service that we'll be offering to you no later than mid-April. But we have already done quite a few houses, just testing it out, making sure that we have the right procedures and that the realtors that we interact with like the product that we are coming out with. And so far it looks really, really cool. So let's jump into some issues and deficiencies that we found, and here we go. So first off, vinyl flooring loose. Okay, so as we talked about before, we talked about not just what we're seeing, but what are some of the mechanisms behind it that could be causing that. And so if we come over and we take a look at this vinyl floor, you can see that the vinyl floor is kind of pulling up and peeling up. And my question would be, why is that? Do we have moisture that is trapped inside of the crawl space that is then causing that adhesive to fail? Did we have a leak that was underneath the toilet that is causing the adhesion to fail? Do we have something else going on that's causing that? Could it just be high levels of humidity inside of the shower of the house? Is there a vent that isn't doing what it's supposed to do? So again, whenever we have issues like this, really, really good conversations about what is the mechanism that is causing this to happen. And ultimately, there's no way to know until you destructively remove the entire floor to have an idea of, maybe is there rot coming from the bottom? Is there humidity coming from the top? What could it be? Or is it just old and it just needs a new floor? And who wants vinyl anyway? Anyway, really, really interesting thing. Very, very cool to see. And so then as we move down, the crawl space cover is inadequate. All right, folks, here's the deal. It is the dead of winter, and there are many, many animals, including bears, large animals, whatever, that are looking for a warm place to live. And whenever you leave your crawl space open like this, we didn't open it. This is exactly how it was. You could just like crawl in here and just make yourself a home. So anyway, speaking of which, we actually have had houses where the crawl space wasn't adequately secured, and homeless people had been basically, bunking inside of that crawl space. And so you'll see like water bottles, cans, like canned food for humans, and like a homemade like bed kind of a thing. And so, very infrequently would you have a homeless person living underneath your house, but pretty please, if you have a crawl space, not just from like a heating perspective, but just from a pest perspective, squirrels, chipmunks, mountain lions, anything, just please cover up that crawl space. That's all we can say about that. So compressible shims. Here's the deal. Whenever you have a post and you need to shim up the house, you should not use compressible shims. So basically you should use a piece of metal, and that piece of metal can't be compressed like wood can be compressed. And whenever you use compressible shims, you might, jack up the thing or hammer in a shim or do whatever, but over time that is going to compress and you're going to lose what you thought that you had. And if you have tile or other things like that, then that bowing or flexion inside of the floor is going to cause that tile or grout to crack or, be damaged and need to be replaced. So compressible shims, don't do it. It's just not worth it. Then we talk about ice dams. If you have not seen our ice dam video series or read the blog post, really, really good understanding of what ice dams are. The main thing is that you just want to make sure you're getting rid of these ice dams because you do not want water to be backed up and coming into the house and creating a leak from your roof. So then this right here, I need to insert a video clip, and I hope that I remember. So this video here is awesome because the switch, the connection is loose, and the problem with the connection being loose is that it is like arcing. It is making an arcing sound. And if you haven't watched the arc fault circuit breaker video, I highly recommend that you watch that. But this is a fire hazard just waiting to happen. It is extreme. And so anyway, is it a hard fix? No, not at all. Like, you buy the $15 timer and then you can just put it in. And if you do some, easy electrical work, it is a very easy swap. Turn off the circuit breaker, open up that cover plate, pull it out, replace the white where the white was, the black where the black was, the green or the ground where it did go, and we're good to go. So you could be done with this repair in 5 minutes or less with maybe $15 worth of parts. But if you don't do it, not only could you be shocked or electrocuted, but your house could catch on fire. So pretty please, just get it fixed. It's $15, no big deal. So then we talk about oxygen permeable tubing. So this house had oxygen permeable tubing. There are downsides to having oxygen permeable tubing. However, on this particular house, steps were taken, such as this stainless steel boiler. And if you watch our oxygen permeable tubing with hydronic systems video, then you would obviously then have a lot more information than I'm going to provide right now that basically talks about these types of systems and how stainless steel is a non-ferrous material that basically allows you to have oxygen permeation to reduce oxidation, blah, 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 blah. Everybody knows. And so what we do is we take a look at these systems and we say, okay, cool. Yeah, the system's looking good. Everything's good with thermal. Everything's good. There's no leaks. We have all the right components in there. And so then that is why it is a blue item as opposed to being an orange item or a red item, because basically they have done the things that need to be done to make sure that it's operating the way that it should be. So then we come down and we have heat tape not installed. Now on this house, there was at one time heat tape, but remember, heat tape is very expensive to maintain. And so where this went was it actually went onto a roof that doesn't have a heated space underneath it. Again, if you watch the ice dam video, heat has to come up to melt the surface of that roof to then have the snow come down and do its thing. So why would there be heat tape here? Maybe somebody just didn't have an understanding of how the system worked. And I think that that's why they cut it and got rid of it. And so heat tape could go there again, but I just, we figured that we should just let you know that, hey, heat tape at one point was here. If you have an issue, you should reinstall the heat tape and you'll be good to go. But I bet you that it was a money-saving thing because where this was located was on a north-facing roof, and it was over top of an entryway that basically just had no hope of having any heat go up and escape. So then again, what's the point of heat tape? You're causing more issues than you're solving. So then we come down to pH neutralizers. And so again, if you're unfamiliar, you can get the little balls that go inside of here for like $30. You can buy that entire cartridge for $50. And the main thing is you have very acidic condensate that is coming down, and we don't want to damage the pipes. And if you're on a septic system, we don't want to damage any of the bacterial load that is inside that septic system that is breaking down solids and liquids. So to make sure that that microbiome is working the way that it should, we want that acidity to be neutralized. And that is what the pH neutralizer does. You replace those cartridges, once a year, no big deal, totally easy peasy. All right, this cracked me up. So this house, there's this police thing called CPTED, and so it's an acronym, CPTED. And so what it is that it is how can you do things at your house to make sure that your house is safe from burglars or crime or other things like that. So like a great example would be that if you have bushes that conceal your house, don't forget that your house is now concealed from your neighbors. And so because your house is concealed from your neighbors can no longer see if there's somebody at your house that shouldn't be there. And so then if you cut down the bushes just a little bit, push them further away from the house, then that gives the opportunity for your neighbors to be watchful over you and nowhere for a burglar to hide trying to gain access by breaking a window or doing something else. And so it's this idea of how do we set up a house to make sure that there are deterrents to prevent burglars or other nefarious people from coming into the house. And this right here just makes me smile. And because it follows the correct path of, hey, we're going to tell people we have security systems. We're going to show this level of security and force. And so then that way people are less likely to break into the house. And that is correct. But there are certain things that you had it, but it's just not there. So this is a dummy system is what this is. And so then it's just there for looks. They don't actually have a security system. It's just there for looks. But the way this works is that there are two magnets. And whenever those two magnets are no longer, underneath each other, then it would set off the alarm. So if this was a real system, then you would want this upper magnet right here to basically come out 5/8 of an inch. So that way it's in line with this other magnet. And so it just kind of cracked me up that I understand why it was done. It was done again to deter crime from occurring by saying, hey, we have a security system, don't mess with this house, move along to the next house. But it's just funny to me that there is an understanding of if a system works a certain way, and then there's not. And so the reason this would be installed on the inside is because if you're using this as a rental, then the people that have rented it and know how to gain access and whatever, then they are less likely to come back because they believe that there's a security system that is keeping track of when renters are there or not there, unless they are mindful and they understand how this is or is not working. I'm sorry, we're done. We're moving on to the next one. Here we go. So handrail missing. Whenever we talk about anything, we talk about, okay, how do I put myself in the shoes of myself as a 6-year-old and as a 90-year-old? And on either of these, if you take a header going all the way down the stairs, you're out of luck. You need to have a handrail there. And whenever you don't have a large enough landing at the bottom, it is extremely dangerous. This is an extremely dangerous staircase, which means you should most definitely have a handrail on it. So then we say carpet needs restretched, and yeah, a carpet needing to be restretched, that's no big deal. As you walk on the carpet, keep in mind that it is carpet and it is carpet padding. As you walk on that carpet, the carpet is actually squishing into that carpet padding, which is doing these micro stretches on the carpet, which makes the carpet loose. So then what you'll need to do is just have somebody come out, they tension a device from one wall to the other wall, and then it pushes apart, and it basically will say, let's say we're up against this wall right here and I have my carpet. It's going to connect into the carpet, and then it's going to push against the wall, and it's going to spread out that carpet, and it's going to restretch that carpet. Any flooring installer is able to restretch a carpet. It's no big deal. We just want to get rid of trip hazards, and we want to make the carpet look really nice. And so whenever you have these ridges, every time you vacuum, every time you walk through, whatever it may be, it's going to damage the carpet. So we want to make sure that we can prolong the life of the carpet by stretching it back out, making it taut, and making it work the way that it's intended to work. So tree damage. So again, why are these houses so close to the trees, or why are the trees so close to the houses? The roots, where are the root systems going? Where are the branches going? What is going to happen in a high wind storm? These trees have the ability to sway back and forth 4 or 5 feet, and they're exerting a pressure or force onto the house that the house is not intended to take. And so I know that they are gorgeous. I know it is beautiful. You feel like you're in the middle of the mountains, but at the same time, you need to take care of your house. Then if you watched our wildfire series, now you know, I think it was like a 6-part video series. Now you know that if there was fire, that now we have ladder fuels that are bringing fire up into the tree canopy, which is then effectively the roof of your house, and your house is going to burn down. There needs to be a defensible space. I love trees. Trees should be there. It's amazing. But you as an individual are not responsible for your carbon footprint the same way that you might think that you are. If you cut down a tree, does that mean that you're a bad person? No, it does not. What we need is for larger industries to not be pushing out so much carbon dioxide, or, to just have more trees in a lot of different areas. But your one tree is not going to make that big of a difference. It is not going to make that big of an impact. You know what is going to make a bigger carbon impact? Instead of cutting down that one tree, is your entire house and everything inside of it burning. If that happens, think about the carbon release then. So if you are concerned about cutting down this one tree from a carbon standpoint, I think you need to get your numbers checked, because that is not accurate. What we really need to do is lobby and petition to make sure we are reducing carbon emissions from the big emitters, such as, larger industries and whatnot. So that's another soapbox. Holy cow, unbelievable. Just going down the rabbit hole on everything here and offending people, I guarantee. But get the trees away from the house. That's all I have to say about that. All right, so next thing, we had talked about a pH neutralizer. And this right here is a pH neutralizer, and it is not doing well. And so if we take a look here, it just looks bad. It looks real bad. And so why is it that it looks like that? Well, first off, we know why this is looking like this, but I've never seen a pH neutralizer that looks like this. So why? The reason why is because it actually has 3 high efficiency boilers that are going to it. This is a huge house. And so 3 high efficiency boilers, they all have very acidic condensate. So now it's 3 times the amount of condensate. So then what do? Instead of having 3 inline canisters, we can have 1 large canister, and you basically open up the top, you replace the things that need replaced, and boom, there you go. Bob's your uncle. You're all good to go. The problem is that if you don't maintain this, then it kind of just deteriorates and falls apart. And so Anyway, is this fixable? Yeah, totally. You can totally fix this. It's no big deal. It looks worse than it actually is, but what this is again, a pH neutralizer, and that's what we have going on here. Just, you know, an FYI kind of thing. So then we come down here and we have beam supports that are just, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. So let me ask you guys a question. Why, or girls, guys and girls, everybody. So why do you have these holes that are at the top of this thing up here? The reason why is so that way you can put a screw or a nail into the structure above, so that way nobody can knock it over. Fantastic. Then as we come down, why do you think that down here they have these holes where the arrow is pointing down? It's so that way, again, you can anchor it. So there's two reasons this happens. One is we aren't going to have any kind of like lifting effects that we really have to worry about, but technically everything should be one system, one structure. And so then what happens is that we want to make sure with one system, one structure, that everything kind of moves together as one. Additionally, let's say the kids are playing football underneath the deck and then they, throw a shoulder into that. The whole thing can topple down and then you lose everything. Okay, but what's the more realistic thing that could happen? You can have expansion, contraction of the soils underneath, which can cause a heaving or settlement. You can have freeze-thaw cycles. You can have humidity and moisture that cause an expansion and contraction of the wood that is around. And all of that can make these micro movements that can cause this to eventually become out of plumb. And once that happens, if the bottom is not secure, the bottom can slide out. And we do not want that bottom to slide out. What we want to have happen is we want it to be secure no matter what. So then, we scroll down to the next one. It's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, just please, like, put a screw in there, put a nail in there, do anything to prevent this from falling over. You are balancing the entire load of this structure on a hope and a prayer, actually on 1.5 inches is what you're doing. And it's just silly. And then if you take a look down here, not only did they shim this with a compressible material, and is it a compressible material? Yeah, take a look right here. So all of this section right up here is basically expanded, and then all of this section right over here is completely compressed, and then way over there, again, is expanded. And so then, you talk about how you're going to have rot and other things like that can occur down at the base of this 4x4. It was a bad design, bad system all the way around. Well, then, John, how do I fix this? Well, it's funny you should ask. So what you should do is you should probably put a metal mounting bracket on there, bolt that directly down into the concrete, and then hammer nails into the side. So that way it prevents it from shifting in any direction or being lifted up. And so then that would be a proper way to anchor it. And then by using that piece of hardware, that also separates the wood from places where moisture can get trapped, which will then cause rot. And so you just want to make sure that you're using the appropriate galvanized hangers to make sure that things are done properly. It's what, a $2 part? And then some hardware like nails and screws and stuff. So what, we're talking $5 total investment to make sure your deck doesn't fall down and kill your family. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. And obviously, like, we're tongue in cheek, we're being hypercritical. And that's because we're having just a little bit of fun discussing what these topics are. Is it easily fixable? Yes. Is it actually dangerous? Oh gosh, that's tough to say, because yes, it is actually dangerous, but what are the odds of that happening? Well, it's not zero, I can tell you that much, but it's probably more like this could happen at this house maybe once every 10 years. We might have an issue that ends up in like a structural damage. The reality is nothing bad is going to happen unless some outside force acts upon it. What is it? Isaac Newton, an object at rest stays at rest, an object in motion stays in motion, conservation of energy, or whatever. That's not conservation, motion. It doesn't matter. Here's the deal. It's been a while since physics. Give me a break. So long story short is that this whole system was just silly. And then also here, same exact thing on every single one of these posts. And so could it be that they put a lag bolt through and that's kind of connected and whatever? Yeah, it could be, but there's no indication that is what happened here. So is that the worst thing that could happen? I mean, no, but I would love to see things be a little bit different. Speaking about loving to see things a little bit different, I would really like to see this pipe not being disconnected. So a disjointed pipe or displaced pipe, basically the problem here is one, if the camera can get past it, that's great. But two, we have roots that are going to be coming in. We have water that is going to be exiting. Just if you are connected to a public sewer line and you don't yet own the house, you should just get a sewer. You should get a sewer scope. And here's why I say this. I mean, obviously I want your money, but the reality is I don't want you to lose a bunch of money. If you are buying a house, you don't yet own this problem. But you're gonna own this problem as soon as you sign the paperwork. So wouldn't it just be better to know before you get too deep into the ownership of the house that, hey, I have a repair that's gonna cost like 10 grand or more. That would be a nice thing to know before you buy the house. Now, if you still buy the house, which this wouldn't stop me from buying a house, because I would know, hey, in a few years, I'm probably going to have to replace this. So hopefully I can negotiate something, but if I can't negotiate something, then does it matter? Well, not really, not at this point, but it is going to matter. But I feel comfortable with that because not only do I know how to run heavy equipment, not only do I know how to repair, a sewer line, but I know the cost of materials, the cost of rental, the cost of all this stuff, and the fact that I have a weekend, I can make it happen. But most people don't have that ability. So then you're talking 10 grand, 20 grand, depending on what's above this area, maybe, more whenever it comes to landscaping and other things like that. And it's just one of those things that if you can do this type of work, I would like to know that ahead of time. So that way I know what I'm getting myself into. Or if you can't do this type of work, then it's really good to know, well, how much money do I have to put aside to be able to do this? All right. This is record-breaking as far as Two Moose Home Inspections is concerned. So this right here is an average of 50 pictocuries per liter of radon. So 4 is the action level. This is 50. This is bad. All right, and so what happens here is that we can easily put in, $2,000 radon mitigation system. And whenever you put in that radon mitigation system, then you're great. Everything is good. There's nothing to worry about and we're all set. But at 50, the World Health Organization says that anything above 2 is bad. EPA says anything above 4. The reality is I don't know of any good level of radioactive material. I don't really think that that's a good thing for you. And this being at 50 means that, especially if you have small children, that is just not a safe place for small children to be. They will have lung issues that will either result in lung cancer or other lung deformities that will give them issues throughout the rest of their life. So we want to get this down to like a 4 or less. And the crazy thing is whether you're at a 50, which this is, or you're at a 4.5, getting down to 4 costs the same amount of money and it is equally as difficult or not difficult to do. And so don't be scared by that big number, except for the fact that this right here tells me we are more than 10, more than 11, 12 times where we should be on our safety levels or action levels, and we need to get this resolved immediately. And so if the seller is not paying for this to happen, the seller should be paying for this to happen, or at least giving you like a $2,000 credit on the house, is my opinion. I'm not a realtor, but that's my opinion. All right, next thing, smoke alarms not present in all recommended locations. Anywhere that you are asleep, there should be a smoke detector. And the reason why is because if I have one in the hallway, that's great, but then I have the door closed and I'm playing music and I might not hear it, and now the house is on fire. So that's bad. But if I have it in a room where I could be asleep, even if I'm asleep and I have music playing and I'm in my own room, hopefully I should be able to hear that. It should wake me up and it should get me out. Additionally, there should be a strobe light. So even if I can't hear things, I should be able to see the strobe light depending on the model. But that's one reason that the strobes are there, is for the hearing impaired, or obviously if it's a loud environment. So then the next thing is, we keep harping on the fact that you're trying to kill our inspectors, but golly, are you trying to kill yourself as well? So pointed objects and electrical stuff don't go together. They don't go hand in hand. As you can see in this photo, all of those screws are blunt. That's what we want. The screws that are in the hand, those are sharp. And so check this out. This is wild. So right here, you can see it's basically at the bottom of your screen right here. There's this opening, basically, this shape right here is what we have. And what that is where the screw hole goes. Now, if you follow that in deeper, you can see that there's actually a hole that was created by threading in that screw. And if it were not for the that little extra lip of that grommet type thing that comes in into the box that is screwed on there, if it were not for that lip, you can see that the screw has gone through. And if it weren't for that other metal piece, it would have gone right into that electrical wire and then electrified the entire box, not to mention the screw and whatever it is that you plug into it. And with this particular type of box and not having like the type of breaker you'd want to shut off all of the power, there is a good chance that this could be electrified permanently until a main shutoff is shut off somewhere else. So anyway, stop doing that. Just put in blunt tip stuff. That's all I can say about that. It's just absolutely wild. And so then anyway, next thing, dirty air filter. So if you haven't watched the ERV HRV talking about pollutants, so this filter is dirty. Anyway, if you haven't watched the ERV HRV video, highly recommended that you watch that. Then we talk about ice buildup. This is interesting. So if you take a look at this ice buildup, we have two two places where the ice buildup is coming from. All the way on that side of the screen, what you're going to see is that we have in the sun, snow is melting, and then that water is coming down and it's going into this driveway. And you can see it coming right across from red all the way over there, red to green to red, and that is then coming down right in front of the garage door. Additionally, in this section right here, you can see that there is dripping. So there's something, probably a roof or whatever it may be, is dripping down in this area. And you can see that splash is then going up and onto the garage door. And so then we have a drip that is making this mound and it's splashing onto the garage door. And so we are damaging the garage door. We're making it unsafe for us to drive on that space. And ultimately it needs to be resolved. But what this really comes down to is that we have a poor, on this far end, we have a poor swale that basically says, hey, water, go the direction of land. And then on our roof, we have poor water management there, whether it be a bad gutter or something else that is causing this issue to occur. But it's just interesting whenever you look at something like this to see if there's actually two mechanisms that are causing us to have this issue that ultimately are going to damage the siding, damage the driveway surface, and damage the garage door. So then we go in screws instead of nails. If we haven't talked about it enough and totally belabored the point, a screw is going to shear. And whenever it shears, there will be no warning. A nail is going to bend and bend and bend and deform, and then it will become brittle because of the movement of that metal, and then it'll snap at that point. But there's so much deflection and so much bend that you know that something's about to fail. Whereas with a screw, it just shears, and there's no warning. It is good one day and then broken the next, versus just failing. And at that point, you could totally tell your deck is failing. So do you want to get rid of those screws? Yeah, I would love to get rid of those screws, but are people going to do that? No. Why would they, right? But yes, all those screws should go and nails should be done. And the reason why is because people think that screws are better fasteners, but they are not. They are 100% not. This one I kind of cracked up on this. So this one is about blind damage. These are probably some of the most damaged blinds that I saw in a while. And it just cracks me up because all it was there's a storage shelf and nobody cared, and they're just pushing stuff into the back of the storage shelf and damaging the blinds. But golly, is that bad? Just cracks me up. The next thing is just a healthy disclaimer about the fact that just because thermal imaging doesn't show a difference in temperature doesn't mean that there isn't moisture damage. So if you take a look here, this was actively wet. So this was actively wet, but yet thermal didn't pick that up. And that is because of how saturated that area was. It was completely saturated and everything was evaporating off of there at the exact same rate. So therefore there was no, whenever something evaporates, basically that is, in order for that to happen, there's a change in energy. And so then we are now taking heat away from that system, and we are, to make that evaporation, we are taking heat away, which is cooling that space. So evaporation cools the surface that it is evaporating from. And so long story short is that this right here was so saturated that there was no difference in the thermal. So just something to be mindful of. Just because something is thermal and it shows that that there is nothing there, you got to use your human eye and you got to use your moisture meter, and then there you go. So next thing here, electrical conductors exposed. Pretty please. Wire nuts, come on, we're better than that. So here's the deal, is that a wire nut can be damaged or separated from the wire, and then you have exposed electrical conductors. And the way that this is designed to have been installed is that actually that wire is supposed to go into the water heater, and it is supposed to be clamped down, so that way if something were to bump the wire, it can't come out. Then you can use the wire nuts inside of that junction box, but they should never be exposed like that because somebody is going to get hurt, and it's just not worth it. Speaking about people getting hurt, normally the glass inside of showers are tempered glass. And so basically whenever something is a tempered glass, whenever it gets hit, it doesn't have long cracks in it. It has like these, basically think of them as like smaller cracks. Like if you've ever seen like a shattered windshield or a shattered anything else, it turns into like all these small like little squares of glass. And that is because whenever you have one big long sheet of glass, there's more of a chance that a cut can occur that would be a very deep and potentially deadly cut. And so what's interesting about this glass is I don't see anything that says that it is or is not tempered, but to have a long crack in that glass like that, kind of just makes me wonder, is it because of how old the house was that they didn't install tempered glass? Because technically, if this were to have cracked or broken, the whole thing either should have shattered and broke, or it should have broken in a different way. It was just a weird thing that kind of caught my eye, but I have no way to verify whether or not it is or is not tempered glass, but golly, it should be tempered glass. All right, next thing is physical damage. Yep. That's going to be a tough one to explain. So basically what happened on this garage door is, I don't know if the driveway was icy. I don't know if it was snow removal company. I don't know if it was like some guy just running, trying to get into the house before the garage door closed and he slipped on the ice and went right into the door. But this garage door is buggered up. And so all of these panels should be replaced to make sure the garage door is functioning the way that it should, that we aren't having any heat loss out of the garage that we shouldn't have. And ultimately, if you're buying this house, you weren't the one that broke the garage door, so why should you have to pay for the repair? This is clearly a user error that caused this garage door to look this way. It's just very interesting. All right, these stair treads, a little bit difficult to see until you put a level on it, but these stair treads, it was like, one would be like completely flat, then the other one would be sloped downward, and then the next one would be like flat, the next one would be sloped upward. And I understand that there is a natural twist that occurs with large pieces of lumber, and that it is possible for them to, as they dry, twist. However, this just seemed like poor construction, and it was a brand new house, and this house just had so many issues. I think this is the last one here that we're going to finish on. But basically, the window well egress is blocked. Not only is the window well egress blocked, but again, put yourself in a 90-year-old version of yourself and as a 6-year-old version. Now, a 6-year-old kid could probably fit into this or through this or whatever. However, this is at the top of an 8-foot tall ceiling. So I don't know how anybody could escape out of here. And additionally, the size of that right there is so small that even me, I don't think that I would be able to shimmy my way out of there in the case of an emergency. It's just not a safe thing to have. And so anyway, what I'm getting at with this is that anytime that you are going to be in a house, think about the use case that you have for that house. And if it is going to be that you have a small child as like a playroom or as a this or a that, you have to think, if I taught this kid how to escape, could they escape? If I was outside of the house and I couldn't get to them because of a fire in one section of the house, could I enter the house to rescue them? And with this type of an opening, the answer is no. And so you just have to think extra hard about how to keep families safe. And so then what do you do in a situation like this? Well, you can either say, this is not a place that kids play, but even as an adult, could I escape? I don't know. But maybe you'd be willing to sacrifice your body to run through some fire, but your lungs, you're going to drop. Ask any firefighter. There's nothing that can really be done. You can burn the skin off of yourself, but you have to breathe at some point to exit your house, and it's just, you're done at that point. Even if you make it out, you could possibly just die from damage to your lungs. So whenever I see stuff like this, I almost want to say this room should just not be used for anything, but maybe that's extreme. I don't know. So just something to think about whenever you have a house that you're in, whether or not you think that this is a safe place for you to have your family, to have your kids, to have anything like that. But that is me getting off of my soapbox. All right. So obviously ranted a little bit, as I always do, but these are just little things that we think about whenever we look at a house, that these aren't just always like the average, normal, everyday kind of issue. And maybe the ones that are, we want to be able to describe them or understand them a little bit more fully. And so this is a part of the things that we talk about whenever we do an in-service training, just the guys and I. But anyway, I love showing stuff like this because if you want to be informed about things in your home, this is one way to do it, because not every home is the same. But I also want to put a caveat on that just because these homes have these issues doesn't mean that they're bad homes. We have yet to see a perfect house. I can't wait. Someday I will see a perfect house. But until then, keep hiring us to do your home inspections, because maybe the next one will be the perfect house. But if you have any questions or if you'd like to schedule a home inspection, please visit twomoosehomeinspections.com. Have a wonderful day.